Let's just make sure that we have audio. Yeah, we got audio. So welcome everybody. My brain has been going crazy since about 3 a.m. and I have two amazing ideas. Of course, well, that's subjective. And we're going to talk about those ideas today while we build out yet another MESHTASTIC client device. It'll be a really fun time and I can't wait to tell you all about it. Let's let some people get into the chat here. And I think you're really going to enjoy these two ideas that I have. We're going to call it D.U.M.B. We'll get to it in just a minute. So, hey, welcome everybody. I will give shout outs here in just a second. First, give me a 1 in the chat if you could hear my audio. I hope you could hear my audio. And also, I got a really bad haircut this week. All right, cool. My audio, you could hear it. That's good. What's up, Hollywood? What's going on, Dog Booyah? Ham Man, Connecticut. What's going on? Hey, Troy, thanks for being here. Scott, thanks for being here. Lee, what is going on? Discord invite. Yeah, by the way, guys, there's a Discord now, and this is going to be there's a big reason why there's going to be a Discord. Get your comms up. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Chris Production, great audio. Thank you so much. Todd, thanks for being here. And local host suggested last week that I change over to Firefox, and so far everything seems to be really smooth. So I think that Chrome just sucks. Hey, thanks for being here, Crandon Boppins. Todd, good morning. Ooh. Chris, what's going on? Thanks for being here. We'll just give it a second more here for everybody to roll in. And Aloysius, sorry, I missed you there. Welcome, and welcome Scott as well. Cooley, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here. Now, many of you might know we've been working on a Zero to Hero kind of live stream series, just a laid back, relaxed live stream series about MESHTASTIC and learning everything we can about it. And there's a lot to learn, but there's a lot missing with MESHTASTIC. Hold on a second. Hydrate. DK, welcome, by the way. DK, you're new. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy it. And if not, thanks for trying. We've been doing this live stream series of like MESHTASTIC, Zero to Hero, and every day we're learning a little bit something new by, of course, building things and talking about different roles like we did this last live stream. And this morning I'm like, well, where does this go? Because I'm just sitting here talking and I hate that. Like, I want this to be interactive so everybody could do something, right? And I came up with an idea at 3 a.m. And I came up with an idea about 7 minutes ago. And they're both called D.U.M.B. So we're going to have to figure this out. But let's start bouncing these ideas off of each other. And then just a little bit later, we're going to go over to the desk. Let me show that to you real quick. And we're going to build another MESHTASTIC unit, or we're going to try. So are you all ready for D.U.M.B? If anybody knows me, you know I need to have a stupid name for everything. It's part of the meme or the fun of it for me. I don't know. But I also want to point out that as we talk about these MESHTASTIC flaws and how we might be able to rectify and fix them, I've been doing frequencies like 2.4 gigahertz and 900 megahertz since at least 2004. And I used to work at an internet company where I would do things like wireless back calls and so forth. So this is like starting to really get me back into things. And I remember thinking yesterday or Thursday at some point how Meshtastic is like really giving me this motivation to tinker, experiment, almost like the makerspace thing that I feel like I'm missing with the rest of ham radio. I'm not putting ham radio down. I love ham radio, but I feel like I'm getting back to my roots of the things that I used to do to really experiment on how things worked. Let me give you an example if I could find the photo. There it is. When I was young, I was also kind of overweight because I drank a lot. But now this is prior to the military. I would go climbing into mountains and I'd find things like old Indian petroglyphs and so forth. For example, here's a photo then. Look at I'm a completely different guy, but I found these, and to my knowledge, nobody else knows where these are because this was quite a hike. But that's not why we went up there that day. And this mountain was quite a ridge. You'll see, I think, a view in just a moment here. You just saw that photo, right? And this all kind of gets back to what has been kind of happening with Meshtastic. It's been pretty fun. I just got to find the other photo. Well, this is my one buddy that I grew up with. And what you're going to notice about this photo is we were working radio frequencies in the mountains since we were kids. I mean, yeah, we were building cantenas and we were trying to shoot wireless from the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, 2 miles, 3 miles just to get a signal and see what we could do. So this is starting to really kind of get me going again. I really think it's a good time. And we would have a blast with that, cantenas and building things and just trying to push how far we can get RF to go. Man, what a good time, right? And that's what this is doing to me again. But the problem that we start to see with Meshtastic before we talk about D.U.M.B, Meshtastic is dead. I mean, like, it's cool. There's a bunch of people on it out here. As far as like all day long, I could look on my phone and I could see, oh, cool. They're 3 pings away or 3 nodes away, or they're 2 nodes away. Oh, cool. I see somebody direct, and nobody ever responds. I'm not complaining. I'm just very passionate about it because how do you build a network of people? I mean, you have to have some communications in a communication related field. And I recognize that a lot of people want to use Meshtastic for secure comms only since you can do encryption. But there are a lot of people out there who, they're getting on Meshtastic and they're expecting to be able to talk to somebody on long fast, even just unencrypted. And they throw out a hello and nobody responds, or they throw out a hello and they don't get a response. And the reason they don't get a response is there's a really degraded signal between you and that main hop who might be, for lack of better terms, repeating the signal to other people, right? And that's what needs to grow. You need to get more people in a general area in order for it to grow. And I think this is where I'm going. Have I met a ham? Okay. This is where I'm going, though. Note to self: don't read comments when I'm on a roll. If I can't reliably communicate with anybody in the time of practice, how am I ever supposed to expect to reliably communicate with anybody in a time of potential chaos? Because at the end of the day, Meshtastic has a really good use case. When I was in the military, we would have what they would call a post briefing. And in the post briefing, I might have told this story before, but in the post briefing, you would give all the information you could about your weapon and then your secondary weapon. And then you would talk about your comms and your primary communications and your secondary communications. And one time it was like a commander or maybe a higher ranking sergeant came to me and goes, well, what's your third means of communication? And I'm like, what? Where he really made me think outside the box. But just because you have cell phones, if they go down and you have your ham radio, something happens there. I mean, like, for example, in the 2021 riots, In Chicago, the police repeaters were constantly getting interfered with because they were still on analog, and that created a lot of conflict since they couldn't use that proper form of communication. So where do you go for your third means of communication? Simple as maybe a encrypted text device. I think it's awesome. So how do we build? My point on that though was, like we're always having to think of alternate means of communication. And if we're in the military, it's not like we're just saying, oh, well, these will work. We're practicing them all the time. We're checking our comms, seeing how they work, checking the status of our batteries, how accurate they are. And we're going somewhere with this. Then I'll read the comments, okay? So the idea I had this morning at 3 a.m., the D.U.M.B, it is called, now there's going to be two D.U.M.Bs, so this is perfect. But I want to hear from you guys. Now it's called Dude's Ultimate MESHTASTIC Build. It's a challenge. Dude's Ultimate MESHTASTIC Build. And every 2 weeks, we have a new building challenge, okay? You could use the same equipment you used the weeks prior, just doing different things. Maybe 1 week is the world's lightest MESHTASTIC node. Now, this is cool, but I think it gets better in just a moment. We work our way up to a waterproof node, an outdoor node, a covert node, right? So how could you blend it into the building so people don't even know it's there? And maybe you could throw it up in a time of emergency if you needed to do so, right? So first of all, I love that idea. And that's kind of what we're going to start with today when we start building is we're going to talk about the first D.U.M.B challenge. I love it. The D.U.M.B challenge. Isn't that perfect? Dude's Ultimate MESHTASTIC Build Challenge, or the D.U.M.B challenge. I'm passionate about this because I really think that there's a lot here. Okay. Because you don't need to be licensed to be on MESHTASTIC. It's going to get people more active. And then you're going to know your comms will work for when you need them to work. Next. I was sitting here waiting for the stream to start thinking, oh God, I hope they like me. And I remembered this time that I came up with this concept for a digital battle kind of royale, if you will. That ended up being called the FT8OFF, if you all have heard of it. But there's a problem with the FT8OFF. It kind of promotes growth and it kind of promotes people doing digital modes. But what if you had Dude's Ultimate MESHTASTIC Battle? D.U.M.B. I'm like, man, D.U.M.B does everything. And the whole premise is it, as we can continue to do these builds and grow MESHTASTIC, we could have weekly or bi-weekly battles, if you will, or contests that all involve MESHTASTIC. And you're a little bit more motivated to get out and travel and test your comms out, but you're also a little bit more motivated to grow the comms in your area because maybe you make more contacts, you get up higher on the list. Now, it's not over yet though, because then things like distance could really play a role. Can you make for example, this last week, as I was playing around with MESHTASTIC and it was snowing, some weird magical occurrence occurred. I'm aware of what it was. But all of a sudden, I was hearing the station on top of the Aeon Center, which is about 38 or 39 miles away as the crow flies. And I was picking it up with I think it said it was a good signal. So all of a sudden now we have this cool thing that promotes MESHTASTIC. And maybe we can get some of the companies involved in this too, because I think the idea is pretty remarkable. And we have challenges that allow us to say, like, you can get more points if you make longer contacts. Maybe our community could break the 200-ish so mile record. I don't see why not, right? So that's where I'm at today. And I want to know what you all think. And then as I hear what you think, I'm going to remind you that we do have a Discord now, and we're going to talk about this more in the Discord. And this Discord's going to have to grow, but I can't do it all. I got to tell you, doing like sales stuff, doing the videos, then doing work, it's kind of a lot, right? So I'm doing my best to let this Discord grow on its own, but I want to be part of it too, right? So there it is. One more time, the Discord link. It is pinned in the chat. It should be pinned in the chat, but there it is again for you. Now, while I'm waiting for your input, I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. I think that I have one more idea for that too, but we'll see. It'll come to me eventually. And yeah, so that really helps the growth too, I believe, because like for example, the gentleman who sent me all of this equipment, all this Meshtastic equipment, and got me truly addicted to it. Apparently, he got rid of it because there was nobody on his island, an island which could definitely have natural disasters and well need this equipment. There was just nobody on the island using it. And so, I fear that we face the same problem even where I'm at. And how do you fix that? You grow it. For example, we have at least 4 channels here in my town for Discord, or for Discord, for Meshtastic, and maybe on the default long fast open channel, I hear a couple of people pinging me a day. So maybe we can grow that. Oh, I've always been on Discord. I just I have a hard time. I'll tell you right now, I have a hard time processing so much coming at me. I'm a very lone individual. Okay. And that's why I'm also saying, like, hey, you guys grow the community. I'm going to take a step back over there because this is a lot for me. I'll be the first to say it. So let's go ahead and let me just catch up with some of the comments here, because I spit out those ideas really quick, but I think that there's a lot of life in Meshtastic. Finally got my Meshtastic case. I'm looking forward to hearing what you got. Ham, making your own case is a game changer. Keep that thought. If I forget, I'm not going to forget. That's what this week's challenge is kind of going to be. Unfortunately, I don't have a 3D printer, so I had to order one. That's okay. Pringle antennas work. Yeah, and Troy, that antenna, I remember that so well too, because I had a Pringles can antenna for 2.4 gigahertz. And I was trying to rectify different like antennas and see what basically what happens. So yeah, Pringle can antennas work. Coffee can antennas not as well. Meshtastic ghosting is a thing. Yeah. Have you met a ham? Oh, about 2 of them. Oh, by the way, this is the other idea. Now, I realize that I just mentioned how I don't have enough people here in my area that are responding back to me, but there is this mode on Meshtastic called licensed amateur radio operator mode, which puts you into the amateur radio bands and your call sign is required in there. And I mean, if there's anybody in the Northern Illinois area who wants to meet me today, I'm trying to activate Meshtastic for Parks on the Air. Yeah. I can probably right now get about 3 stations direct, but I would need about 7 more to do a full activation on Meshtastic. I mean, that would be cool. And you guys here, as far as I know, nobody else has ever done it. And now that I've said it, it'll get done, but I would love to be able to do it myself. And yeah, so let's see here. My suggestion is to get 2 to start. I agree with you, and we're going to talk about that today, so you can practice. Oh, replying to Hollywood. I know what you're talking about. Have you met a ham? Okay. Okay. Let's see. I was in radio in the Marines 20 years ago. Radio never quite changes, right? So that's awesome. And welcome, Chris. Thanks for being here. Meshtastic on a kite. That could be one of the challenges. Actually, in fact, I had an idea for a challenge that would involve, well, I know that Carlos has jumped with him before, but it would involve Carlos. A kite would work almost just as well for some of these ideas that I have too. So anyway, yeah, let's do this. It's a great idea. Thank you. Appreciate it. We just got to grow this now. And I know that I'm talking fast, so let's go ahead and see. We are encouraging our Aries members to get systems up and working on getting info out to the public in our area to encourage them to get AER set up for it. We are working to build a mesh up around Southwest Missouri. Perfect. And here I am in Northern Illinois, and hopefully could do the same. There's a Makers Fair. If you're all familiar with Makers Fair, we'll get started here in just a moment. But if you're all familiar with a Makers Fair is occurring in the beginning of April or next month in a town or a county over from me. And there's some amateur radio guys going to be there, and there's a bunch of other people, robotics people going to be there. And I almost think that it's probably the best place for me to get out there and show people how cool MESHTASTIC can be. I need to remake my mesh cases. I got a holographic build plate. I want my nodes to be blinging. We could do that. I want to set up an MQTT channel to allow all HRD followers to communicate via MESHTASTIC. Let's look at MQTT next week. Like, I'm kind of familiar about it, right? But not completely. Maker fairs are awesome. That's right. Makers fairs are awesome. That's right. And Drone-tastic. Drones would be a fun one too. Yeah, with the kites, the drones, the guy parachuting. Anyway, ham radio is the original Maker's world. It is. I feel kind of at home in this MESHTASTIC space. Okay, so that's kind of why I'm rolling with it now. And today we're going to build a very inexpensive node. Now the story on this goes. Let's go over to the bench. Give me just a moment to move the light over there so it's bright for you. Change the microphones. All right. If you're unaware, I just want to make sure another one in the chat, if you could do that favor for me. But if you're unaware, I won't be able to read the chat comments instantaneously until I get a TV behind where I'm recording or another monitor. I have to turn around and look every so often. But first of all, I want to thank my buddy in Guam for sending me all the MESHTASTIC equipment. This last week, just 2 days ago, and I'm going to have a build video on this Monday morning, I found in my box of stuff a Heltec version 2 LoRa device. And it just turns out that Heltec is one of these MESHTASTIC devices. So I had a MESHTASTIC device laying around since I checked my billing logs. Just want to make sure that I'm heard. Can you all hear me okay? I think I'm being heard. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. MESHTASTIC builds are relatively inexpensive. Okay. So for example, when I bought the Heltec version 2, this is a Heltec version 3, the difference appears to be USB-C versus micro USB. But I don't think I paid more than like $12 each for these. And it says I got 2 of the version 2s. I found one of them. That's what I built this one with. And we're going to build the version 3 today. And we're going to do a little bit of experimenting as well. Particularly, this is a signal stick that I purchased recently for UHF. Now, I'm kind of curious to know if I, put it on the meter, it'll show that it's good in the 400 megahertz range of UHF. But if we cut it, will we be able to get a MESHTASTIC signal stick? And I've already reached out to MESHTASTIC and I suggested that idea, or maybe I implied the suggestion to them. Anyway, Signal Stick is a great group of people, and the reason for it is they do donate a lot of money, or a good portion of the money to go help hams or kids get their ham license. So check it out at Signal Stick, and we're going to play around with that today too. We're just going to build this out. As we build this out, though, I want to mention this week's challenge. We're going to start easy, right? Because everybody here may have a MESHTASTIC device, but not everybody will. that doesn't make sense. Most people here might have a MESHTASTIC device, but not everybody will. And so I'm going to build out this Heltec, which is a very inexpensive board device for MESHTASTIC. And as we do this, this week's challenge is going to be MESHTASTIC on a budget. And the goal is to utilize certain things that you might find to be used for the case. Not everybody has a 3D printer, as we just established in the chat a moment ago. Okay. So your goal is to go to like Goodwill and find something that might be used for a case. Okay, maybe inexpensive. I'm not going to give any ideas. I have a few as well, and I don't want to give too many ideas away. But try to keep it as cheap as possible. If you want to add a GPS module, add a GPS module, but basically adapt and keep it, at this point, I guess, compact. And I'm sure that people in the chat will be asking questions, so we'll go back to that in a minute. If you are looking for a case, now, I'm not sponsored, affiliated with anybody. In fact, I turned down affiliations, but Spec 5, I had to open up this Spec 5 device. And the reason I had to open up this Spec 5 device was there's a SMA connector that would go like one of these spots, like right here or whatever. And the SMA connector broke off because it was straight on the board. Now I tried to resolder it, but unfortunately the connectors that I got were a little too wide for it. So I just ordered a new board. But upon that investigation and tearing everything apart, which I'll have a build video on this probably Wednesday, I noticed that Spec 5 actually, you can go to their Etsy page and you can buy cases and things like that too. So if you're looking to buy a case and not just be like a completely cheap ham, you could go to like Etsy and type in MESHTASTIC case, right? And there's a couple of different major brands of MESHTASTIC stuff. Today we're working with the Heltec. LilyGo is another one, and WizRack, right? WizRack. Somebody in the chat will let me know. And keep that in mind because these all have different sizes. They all perform relatively the same. Some of them have GPS already built in, like we saw in the first build. Some of them don't. And this one's just very basic, okay? So this is the version 3, like I said, USB-C. It's got a little screen on it. This is the Bluetooth module. And you might notice this from a Morserino. If you have a Morserino, this is the same thing that's on a Morserino with a different firmware on it. I went ahead, though, for today, and I printed up this case. I chose these colors because I'm going to give this to a buddy. This is like a totally 80s revival. He'll love it. Okay, and then I need these 2 buttons, which I printed as well. Now, I printed this all in ABS, and from this build, there's one thing I learned, that the back of my case kept kind of falling off. So what I did, we're going to see how it worked today, I printed the backside of this case at 100.5%, just a little bit bigger, so that I might get a little bit better fit. So we have a case. We have the Heltec. We're going to try maybe to install this GPS. Now, I don't know if this is going to work or not, to be honest with you. It's kind of like one of those things that are here, and we'll see. And then we're going to need a battery. Now, my EOD buddy sent me a battery, so let me go grab it. And this case, and the reason I went to printables.com, I need to give you a link. Give me just a moment to get back to the computer. But the reason I chose this case in particular was it was specifically designed for a 3 amp hour, 3000 milliamp hour battery. So with that, let me go back to the desk here real quick just to read some comments. I'm reading your comments. By the way, I see you all talking a little bit about your game plan, which I think is awesome. And you guys can continue the conversation too, as well, in the Discord. But one thing that I'll maybe give a suggestion on is, and you'll see it here. Let me turn around real quick. Cool. Maybe you go to Goodwill and you find some really interesting Goodwill finds. If you guys have ever watched my channel, you know I love Goodwill. And maybe you have some Goodwill finds that help you. Well, maybe they help you a little bit with the finding things on the cheap and improvising a build, right? All right, back over to the desk right now. Oh, there was another thing that mentioned something very important. I'm going to actually change the camera over. No, I'll go back over here. Last night, for the 1 millionth time, somebody asked, because I'm an expert now for 3 weeks, which MESHTASTIC device should I buy? And I've realized quickly that the answer is like radio. It depends. So the question I've started to ask is, what is your use case? Are you going to be just using it at home? Because if that's the case, a station G2, or like on a tower, a station G2. Are you going to be portable with it? Are you going to be hiking Denali and you need it to be waterproof? And a lot of those things are going to make a big difference. Somebody mentioned it was Dog Booyah, that the rack or the Wiz rack, RAK, is great for power saving. So maybe that's one thing you consider here, because there are statistics on the Heltec, which, let's just start kind of building this out, I suppose. First thing I'm going to do is put in these buttons, but there are specs on the Heltec, which even this, 3 amp hour battery with the GPS running, it's probably only going to last like a day or so. I don't have the exact specifications here with me at the moment, but what I'm trying to say is that this one's not as power consumption friendly. Okay. Maybe you need a keyboard. Those are all going to be things that depend on you and how you decide to build out your first unit. But realistically, you might have some parts laying around. Maybe you only want to spend $30. You could do that. We could talk all about that in the Discord too. But I just put these 2 buttons in, and they're a little bit loose. I probably could have printed those out with a thicker scale as well. And I will do my best to, if you go to my community post also, there's a description of everything I did yesterday when I did this build. And next I have this Heltec, and obviously we have the screen here, and we have the USB-C, and this is where the USB-C slot is going to go. And then there's these 2 buttons, which obviously are going to go right there. So all we have to do is put it in, and it should kind of be a little bit tight of a fit. I don't know if you heard that. It clicked in, and that gives us the opportunity to use our buttons. Now, I'm not going to just plug in this 3 amp hour battery right away. Instead, I want to use this, I think it's a 3 or a 5 dBi antenna. This antenna actually performs fairly well. If you guys want to see a video of me testing it, it's about 3 minutes long. We could do that right now. It's a vertically oriented video. Let's go check it out real quick. Maybe. Hopefully you will be able to hear this, and you guys will let me know, I'm certain. Don't worry. It's really dark at the moment. I got replacement blinds coming today. But let me pull up that video. One moment. Let me know if you could hear this. Right here, I have a 900 megahertz 10 dBi vertical antenna. It's indoors because, well, the HOA sucks. And right here, I have a Heltec version 2 MESHTASTIC node that I just built today. We're going to drive around town and see how far out we could make contact with the station G2 with this MESHTASTIC node we just built. Are you ready? I don't think he's ready. House 10 dBi signal noise ratio and negative 79 dBi on the signal to the dude's G2. We'll see you in about a mile at the post office. Now, I typically won't get a good signal through here because of the, well, extreme population of houses. But let's give it a shot. We're going to click here, and we're going to click trace route, and that should give us a response to and from dude's G2. We did get a response from dude's G2, and we have a signal noise ratio of 8.25 dB with our RSSI as negative 102 dBm. It shows our signal is good. Here at the post office, it's normally hit or miss whether or not you can make a contact, so we're going to give it a shot. But also, when the spring starts to come, I'm never going to be able to make a contact, and this is why. Very heavily wooded area. As those trees grow in, you lose your line of sight capability. Of course, the more moisture and leaves that are blocking your signal, the more degraded your signal will become. Interestingly enough, I've only been an expert in MESHTASTIC for about 3 weeks, 4 hours, 2 minutes, and 36 seconds. But I do have a lot of experience in the 900 megahertz range, so I understand the line of sight or near line of sight capabilities of 900. All right, let's give this a shot. We're going to click on Dude's G2, click on Trace Route, and we wait. Oh, look at that. Instantly. And it's a good signal. 1.5, of course, as our signal noise ratio decreases in decibels, that means we're going to have a more degraded signal. And our RSSI is negative 110, which we're starting to get to a cutoff point, but we're still okay. The MESHTASTIC video series will start soon. I'll do a build video on this, as well as a few other different devices. Today's total distance to the post office as the crow flies was about 1.4 miles. But as I make that next video, I'll go out to some higher points and test this a little bit further. Until then, and as my good friend Freddie would say, mesh on, y'all. Okay, so there right here, I have a 900 megahertz 10 dBi vertical antenna. It's indoors and because the HOA sucks. Sorry. And right here, I have a Heltec version 2. A lot of times we talk about, is the device any good? Is the device any good? These little devices are, with the exception of the station G2, I think these little devices are all going to be relatively in the same ballpark as far as how well they perform. And we start to look at the antenna as a better contributing factor, right? So keep that in mind. Back to the desk. Let's get this finished build. Build finished. Let's get this build finished. Okay. So one of the things that I was just talking about was our antenna. And even though we're going to have an antenna right here, we're going to have to run it with some wire. Now, when I bought this antenna, it was in a 2-pack and it came with 2 of these as well. And the theory and the concept is simple, right? All right. And if you guys need to start asking any questions in the chat, feel free to do so. One of the things that I could also point out, depending on the use case of the device, as I was talking about just a few moments ago, you might not need a battery. I mean, that would, to me, it would make sense to have a battery for backup and everything like that too, but you might not need a battery. Or maybe you don't have the funds to buy a GPS. You know, we're going to mess with this later anyway, but maybe you don't have the funds for a GPS, or maybe you're building this for a buddy. In the MESHTASTIC app, you can always go into the app and set the GPS information yourself. I'm just going to hand tighten that for a moment. Okay. And then, silly me, guess what? I got to pop that back out. Probably not the best idea. There we go. The Wi-Fi connects right here on the Heltec. What I would probably recommend with these pins is they're very fine and detailed. There are tools you could use to kind of help crimp them on, or just be very careful when you do so. That's why I got my glasses on, right? I might have to go off camera just a little bit because I can't see. You'll feel a nice audible click when you, I think you might have seen it on the camera, but you'll hear a nice audible click and you'll feel it as well. So now we just need to figure out, how do we want to route this so that this wire doesn't get too kinked up? If this wire pulls or gets too kinked up, here's what'll happen. I probably threw it away, but I basically, I had one of these that ripped off right into here earlier. It wasn't anything I did. That's how it was when I opened the case. But yeah, just kind of being careful because these are kind of sensitive. And I mean, in my eyes right here, there's plenty of room for a nice GPS to go, maybe even like right here. Okay. And from what I was reading about the GPS, we could take a look at the, how about we build that out next week? We'll try to do the GPS, and I'll get a few different ones in case this one doesn't work. But what I was reading is two things. Number one, it's like pin 45 and 6, as well as 3.3 volts and maybe like a TX-RX pin. But the problem that you have to consider, and some of the guides talk about, is adding a diode in line. And the diode prevents the constant draining of the battery because, again, they talk about Heltec and they talk about how maybe it has a little worse power consumption than like a rack. And I do want to also articulate that if you have a T Supreme or a Taco Bell, a T-Beam, like a T-Beam will actually come with GPS in it already, so you won't have to worry about it. Just things to consider here, but it looks like right here you'd be able to put a GPS. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to hook up this battery, and to do that, let's see what's going to work best for us, right? Very small slot for the battery. I mean, this is why it's so fun too. It's like you can make this as difficult as you want. Oh. I made a mistake there, and I'll openly admit it, and I'll take my bad for that one. And I said this last week or the week before too, but to plug in the battery without an antenna is basically potentially automatically transmitting on it, right? Maybe it will transmit, and the potential to fry your radio does exist. So let me just get that antenna on before I plug that battery back in. And we're going to point out a couple more things too. So as you could see, if you watch the first video build that I did, the theory and the concepts are all the same, because the first one was the T-Beam Supreme, the Taco Bell Supreme, as I called it. And this one's a different unit, but it's the same kind of build. And you could start to go into more depth and detail about the build if you choose to. Like, you could add things on if you want to. I've seen some people build a whole keyboard out for these things. Anyway, I got the battery in here. It sits really nice. One of the things I'm not necessarily, you'll see why in a second, but one of the things I don't necessarily care for on this is, and I think other people have mentioned it too, is there is the potential that as you put this down, maybe the battery accidentally hits something here. Maybe it creates a short. So what I will do is I'm just going to go ahead and put a small piece of double-sided tape right here, I think. And I'm hoping that that gives a barrier in between the two, right? And I will take a look at the chat. Yeah, I'm going to use my 9900 milliamp hour or 9.9 amp hour batteries. If you guys were watching those first live streams, I did test this battery and the video was posted this morning. So check that out later. Which case is that? Yeah, at the moment, I can't link the case, but I will before the end of the stream. If I forget, please let me know. Or you can go to my community page, which I've linked it, and a full detailed tutorial on how to do all of this. Hey, actually, give me a moment. I'll get you a link. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget the pinned comments now shows a Discord link. Please join it, especially if you want to be part of the D.U.M.B challenge. And if you don't know what the D.U.M B challenge is, just when the stream is over, go back and check it out. We talked about it, but there's 2 reasons for it, and I think it's going to be fun. And there is a link now to principles in the chat as well. So we now have this on. Everything appears to be okay. We're going to put just a little bit of tape here to kind of separate these 2 things, but also I think that it creates a tighter bond in between the 2, so it doesn't like, it's not as loose while you're running or something. I suppose we could use the bubble wrap it came with, but let's not do that. Kapton tape. Captain tape. Kapton tape. I'll order some of that. Right now I'm using extreme mounting tape. By the way, this stuff isn't that extreme. What's extreme is trying to get this stupid. I will jump onto Amazon this week and order some of that. Oh, man, come on. Like, I think as you get older, it becomes more difficult to get this stupid stuff apart. I got an idea. Maybe. Yeah. That looks like a different V I'm reading from very far away. Does that say VHB tape? Okay. I'm just going to kind of keep that there. Look, it doesn't even stick. That's all right. There. And then let's just see here. Look at that. You guys want to configure this now? Dictionary? There must be some kind of, there's a game that sometimes I hear people play. And I think it's picking up messages from a while ago since this unit is old. But if we reset the unit, it'll show that the firmware is version 2.3.7. And that's not the latest firmware. So let's go ahead and plug this into the computer and get it updated. We've done all this before too, but look at how easy it was to make that build. Battery at a very simple basic level, battery, some kind of case, an antenna, and you know, maybe the actual main board itself is kind of important too. What I'm getting at though is if you start to think outside the box now, you go over to Goodwill. I have this as an example. This is an old case that I have from a 1-to-1 choke. Okay. But it wouldn't take much for me to unscrew these, put the type N connector here for a 5 or 8 dB antenna. And then maybe down here, I would have a USB-C or some kind of routing in for my power. And then inside I can put, you know, a nice Heltec case and then the battery, plenty of room in here, right? And as I was reading the Heltec, if you want to have it constantly working, so like solar charge, for example, 2 watts would be the minimum that they recommend for it to be basically storing as much energy as it's drawing. I think I said that correctly. All right, let's get this programmed. So what'll happen here is I got to unplug this camera, which I think kind of really sucks. I'm just trying to think if there's another way. Is there a way? You know what? Before we do that, let's just let that sit for a moment. Let's take a look at this. We're going to do open load short on this, and we're going to, I don't know what that is. We're going to open load short this, and then we're going to, this should be good around 400 megahertz, 430, 480, somewhere around there. Let's not use this nice signal stick. Let's use this cheaper, whatever it is. So the first thing I'm doing here, I'm just going to go and I'm going to calibrate my nano VNA, which will make sure our test results are a little more accurate. I'm starting with the open. And then I'm going to go to a short. By the way, this also is 3D printed, and I could give you the link to this 3D print as well. And then we're going to go to the load. I realized I didn't set my frequency. Let's do one more time for good luck. It is a cool tool. In fact, here, I'll just kind of give you an idea. Here's a 915 megahertz antenna. And I'm going to, the battery's almost dead. But if I trying to show it off so you guys could still see it, you could still see a little bit of, I'm also trying to hold it straight up, right? But if I have it like this, I could scroll down and I could easily see that at 920 megahertz, I'm at about a 1.2 to 1. Of course, we might play around with a tiger tail a little bit to see if we can get that standing wave ratio lower. Of course, we have this antenna here, and it's probably a half wave. So then, theoretically, we could plug this one in. This is the signal stick, and it's not really going to show us anything good for the band that it wasn't intended to be on, right? It's 400 megahertz. We're going to roll with this anyway. And of course, I'm kind of horizontally oriented right now, but you could see at 459 megahertz of 1.1 to 1. That's what we would expect to see for an antenna that was built for, 70 centimeters ham band. We're going to try to cut this one down because, well, you got these two nice dips. You got one here at 429 megahertz, and I got to assume that this is going to be about 860 megahertz, but that's not right. So let's see. 615 megahertz, and then it goes up, and it goes where we need to be at around 906 megahertz. We're at like a 2.5 to 1. Of course, my antenna's flopped down. So I guess the first thing I'm going to do is, instead of like doing measurements and stuff, whoa, look at that. It's like just loose. This is the perfect antenna to do it on since it's loose anyway. As you can see, I'm turning it, and the whole nitinol wire internally is turning as well. But I am going to cut some of this off here. One of the things I want to point out about 900 megahertz is cutting things. Now, we're not even close to 900 megahertz, so we're going to cut at least half off right now. But doing adjustments on 900 megahertz is very fine. Okay, very, very fine. And I might need to go find a wire cutter. So I'll be right back. Take a look at this and enjoy it for a moment. Well, let's see where we're at now. Cool. Nothing has changed. Well, kind of. See those sparks right there? That wasn't good. You probably should have this unplugged while you cut it. This is a throwaway one. I have a cheaper one anyway. But hey, forget it. Let's do that again. Did you see that spark again? Actually, that was the metal with the nitinol. This is nitinol wire. That's why it has like, it always like kind of flicks back to where it should. It has a memory. So here we are at 640. Oh, we're not going to, this isn't going to do anything. 657 megahertz. Wah, wah, wah. Okay. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. I got to assume there's a coil in there. Anyway, let's just keep playing and see what we could do. Can you show what the SWR reading looks like on the screen? Yeah, no worries about that. But the problem is if I do that, it's probably going to be affected slightly because of the orientation, but I'll be more than happy to do so. See, like even going up there, it's not as low as a dip as it is here. I mean, I'm just screwing around at this point. This is my go-to antenna, and we should update the firmware. Let's see some more sparks. I'm going to go. Yeah. My dog is like, what's going on, man? maybe we need to have a tiger tail, because like, yeah, we're inching up that way. We're at around 700 megahertz now, but our standing wave ratio is 1.8 to 1. So if I'm touching this metal here to try to see if it like works as a counterpoise. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So my thought of this, I'm glad I didn't waste a signal stick. Instead, I wasted something that I don't know really what it is. 1.6 to 1. And it probably has something to do with impedance. Cool. Anyway, let's just stick with this one. You know, it was worth a shot, though. I don't want to go too much shorter. Yeah. Boom. All right. You know what? Just for fun, though. And to kind of show off that these antennas here, for the price, I think it's like $10 or less. And I'll do my best to show you the standing wave ratio here. Let's see, stimulus, start. Right at 906. We're at about 1.2 to 1 standing wave ratio. Okay. Of course, our dip is probably around 915 megahertz, where, you know, we're about 1.5 to 1. Here. That's funny, though. You guys see that? Okay, I like these antennas. However, it doesn't seem like you probably want to put it in this position, because when you're dealing with 900 megahertz and you're dealing with even a slightly, not 900 megahertz, I'm sorry, when you're dealing with a very, I did it again, I unplugged, whatever. When you're dealing with a very low, let me put this on there, a very low output power transceiver as it is, and all of a sudden you start to get a higher standing wave ratio. I mean, if you're only operating 100 milliwatts, for example, and you have a 2.5 to 1 standing wave ratio, how much are you really getting out? Maybe none. Look at that. That's really interesting. Anyway, we're just going to keep it like that then. We're going to have a whole thing where we build antennas. In fact, I just built a collinear or COCO antenna for 900 megahertz, and it, depending on who you ask, I think it did well, but the guy I gave it to said no. All right, let's get this programmed up. And in order to do so, I am going to unplug here. I shall return. I shall return. You'll be able to hear me still. Hello, I'm back. And I got a USB-C cable. Today we're doing USB-C. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in that MESHTASTIC device. Fits well. Fits great. I didn't hear anything from Windows indicating that I plugged in a new device, so I'm going to jump into the device manager. Let me see if I could share that with you real quick. Actually, in fact, let's just go over to the MESHTASTIC website together. Hopefully you could see that okay. Zoom in a little bit more for you. There you go. So if your device is already connected and has MESHTASTIC installed, you can automatically detect it. We're going to click on auto detect, see what happens here. Nothing, because we're on Firefox. Let's just try to go to the HealthTech. I just clicked on HealthTech, and then here it is, HealthTech version 3. Now, if you have, I'm sorry if that's like really small, by the way. Oh, you did hear the Windows chime. That's great. Thank you. So if you have the HealthTech version 2, again, I refer you to my community post that I made yesterday that has the instructions on how to install MESHTASTIC on version 2. Otherwise, I should have the video tomorrow, but we're going to click on this here. And yeah, we're going to say this is a HealthTech version 3. Let's go ahead and just install the most stable beta version, alpha versus beta. Alpha could have a lot of bugs and it could be problematic. So let's just stick with the beta. And we're going to click on Flash. Talks about known issues, all this stuff. We kind of went over all this already. And the truth is once you flash one MESHTASTIC device, at least with the Lil Egos and the HealthTechs and the ESP32s, you're pretty much good for the rest of them. Now I'm going to do a full erase and install like I did last time as well. And that's because this device came from somebody, and I want to make sure that everything he had on there is off there. If he had anything on there, and we're just going to click erase and flash. And much like we're going to go to Chrome. Much like the other day, we had some issues with the browser interacting with the HealthTech device or the ESP32 device. We're having that same kind of issue today. Welcome, Taz. Good morning. And I'm about ready to wrap it up here, I think, myself. I want to thank you all for being here, but let's go ahead and get this all finished up here. And let me just go ahead and remove that for a moment. We'll try this in Chrome. That looks much better anyway. I think you could see it easier. So select target device, auto detect. You guys can see my ports here. I just go to the COM21, which is a CP2102. Now, I already have these drivers installed, but you might need to install the drivers for this to see correctly. We're going to go ahead and click connect, and it detected it as a HealthTech. So far, Chrome is working a lot better as far as that goes. Let's go ahead and stick with the latest beta version of 2.5, and we're going to click Flash. Yeah, let's just click Flash, click Continue. Let's do a full erase and click Erase. And this is going to be about it. So this might take a while. While it's taking a while, why don't we swap me out with, I don't know what I just did there. You can see it's writing, and then eventually it'll reboot. So, hey, any questions? What do you guys think of the D.U.M.B challenge? The D.U.M.B challenges. So we have Dude's Ultimate MESHTASTIC build, which, remember, this week we're going to just focus on building a inexpensive node. Go to Goodwill, find some things that might work out for you. You saw that cool tripod stand. Let me give you a better view of it here. And all this is a phone tripod stand, you know. It's pretty cool. And what I didn't like, though, is these buttons on this one, they're a little noisy. I'm not going to I'm not going to shake the other one because it's flashing currently. But, you know, just go out there and I think that that's our goal is to find unique uses for different kind of things. Okay, so if you want a 3D print a case, 3D print a case, whatever. My goal is as time progresses on, we could start doing things like little giveaways for the winners, right? For example, one of the things I was thinking of was a custom call sign wallet. I don't know if you guys remember me selling these last year, but I was custom engraving wallets, and I was selling them. So like maybe that would be a good winner prize, if you will, for the D.U.M.B challenge. And then we have the and just to recap, we have the dude's ultimate Meshtastic battle, which I think every week or two we all get together and we just try to make as many contacts locally as we can to promote it, but also just to get the word out there and have a good time doing it. So I would love to know if you guys continue to think that that's cool. Right now it's flashing over the air. Let's take a look at this a little bit more. I would be even willing to go to this. They call it the Willis Tower now, right? It's the Sears Tower, but I would be willing to go to the Sears Tower to operate Meshtastic from the top floor of the Sears Tower, just to see how far we can get out, and just to win the dumb the dumb battle, if you will, the dude's ultimate Meshtastic battle. Anyway, it's finished, I think. Here's what it says: flashing file system 100% complete. If I page down, it says leaving. And at this point that it says leaving, as I recall, we could reboot and unplug our device. There are two buttons on here, which each device will have different uses, but the bottom button is a reset button. I think if you hold the top one in, it'll shut it off. And then the top one, if you tap it, it'll scroll through your messages. So this ends up being my Meshtastic ID, Meshtastic underscore 4E2C. I'm going to leave it there for now today. We built this out. But when I have the video on Monday, it'll be to the point, step by step on how you can build your first Meshtastic node. If you want to go with the Heltec, just because I showed it off today and I'm going to show it off Monday, feel free to go with the Heltec. With my former professions, I conceal carry everywhere. Thanks for the question. I will tell you. I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you in person if and when I get to meet you. Maybe it's not a public thing to talk about, but something happened last year on the way back from the Sears Tower that really opened my mind a little bit. So with that, I think we're good here. I appreciate y'all being here. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned, like, hey, we have these great ideas. Don't forget to join the Discord. Could anybody spam the chat with the Discords? Let me get the link again for you. Join the Discord. Right now, there's only like two things in there. There's general, and then there's the D.U.M.B challenge. Okay. But as time progresses, people will say, hey, can we add this? Can we add that? And all you realistically have the ability to provide better Elmerine than I ever could. And so we're trying to get a community of like-minded individuals, positive thinking individuals to help grow the hobby, grow the channel, and overall just have a good time with what we're doing. So join that, but let's work on this. Let's work on this D.U.M.B challenge. Want to do a 73 round? Let's do a 73 round. Thank you all for being here. And Stein Joe says, KI7CIA says, I hit the thumbs up. Thanks for another adventure in ham radio. Hey, thanks a lot. I'm glad to be here today. And thank you for being here. Very interesting. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for being here, Ham Man CT. And I'm going to hydrate real quick. Todd 73, thanks for being here. And Alpine Radio Waves, what's going on? Hey, thanks for being here, Jurgen. And Mr. Techie, need MESHTASTIC over Ethernet so the radio can go on the roof and connect to devices indoors. I'm just making sure that I, sorry, I had one of those moments where I'm like, I got to focus on this one. Need MESHTASTIC over Ethernet so the radio can go on the roof. Oh yeah, power over Ethernet. We were discussing that recently. In fact, Josh said it was okay that I play this video as long as I give him credit. And next time, let's just do it on the next stream. I'll show Josh's video. I'll link it for you now if I can find it. But Josh interviewed somebody at Hamcation or Hamvention that had a little node box. I think it did power over Ethernet. And yeah, so what I'm doing, we're going to have a whole challenge for that as well. But what I'm doing is I'll have the 900 megahertz antenna at about 100 feet, and I'm running hardline Helix cable the 100 feet down. So there is a little bit of loss, about 2.5 dB of loss. And it's going to go to my station G2. So I think that that's going to be a pretty good solution as well. That way I have the power and the device inside and protected from the elements. But your point makes a lot more sense. Oh yeah, you want to transport over IP as well so that you can continue the communications. Okay. Hey, thanks for being here, Cooley. And great. I was causing you to drink. Hey, Chris, thanks for being here. And Ham Man Connecticut, thanks for being here. Cooley, thanks for being here. Ham Without a Plan, thanks for being here. 73 was late because I slept in going slot car racing with the family. That sounds really fun, to be fair. I've done that once, and I think it's really cool. And let's see here, not just power transport over IP. Oh, by the way, Mr. Techie, thank you for being here as well. No reason to run a long coax. I already have it ran. So that's why I'm using it that way. And 73 to you, Andy. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Guys, thanks for being here. Don't forget to join the Discord. Let's do this. I'll see you at the D.U.M.B challenge next week. I can't wait to see in the Discord all the cool things you come up with. And eventually, though, we're going to start doing these after chats as well. I'm going to copy Josh. Take care, everybody. And Todd, thanks for that $20 super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Y'all take care. 73.